Out of all the chapters, I cannot stand this one, and it's probably going to get me banned from YouTube. Welcome back, guys. Another episode of Practical Female Psychology. I hate this chapter, but for the sake of completeness, we're going to go over it. It's chapter 15, episode 16, last minute resistance. Fairly straightforward. There's two types of last minute resistance. How do you deal with last minute resistance? Preempting last minute resistance, and the Rapo Game, which I'm not familiar with that one. I'm sure you guys can go look it up on some pickup forum if you want to. Let's get into it. They start with a quote here that basically, and what is LMR? Basically, when a girl has agreed to be in an isolated venue with a man, she has decided, at least subconsciously, that the guy in question is superior in terms of genetic fitness in comparison to all other males in her proximity. At a minimum, she would like for others observing the interaction to believe she feels this way. Since last-minute resistance frustrates the man and puts him in a position of wanting something from her, exhibiting it gives her some power over him, and in this way, she can maximize her potential control over him. It is therefore important to detect the underlying meaning of last-minute resistance being displayed. So, if you guys don't know, there's a few things I really don't like about male spaces. The big one is what I call don't eat paint warnings. If you don't know this is because back in the day, paint used to be made with lead, and kids thought it tasted sweet, and so they would eat it. And then that's the problem, is that you ended up with some flipper babies and the kids were dying off. So they had to put a warning on the paint can saying, warning, do not eat. And since then, we've gotten to warnings for just about everything. And the part I dislike is when you're here talking about sexual strategy, you're teaching to the lowest common denominator when you put don't eat paint warnings and everything, which I find is annoying. Like if you have to tell a guy, don't put in your eye, don't eat poison, don't commit illegal acts, then I think you're the kind of person you're helping is going to screw up anyway. So just let them go screw up. They're not your audience. They're not who you want to talk to. I refuse to indulge the idea that somebody is so stupid as to do something life-ending, ruining his entire life because of something on a guy YouTube video would tell him to do without actually, taking some critical thought to his own best interests. So forget that guy. We're just dealing with you. You know what you're doing. Now that I've said that, last minute resistance is just there. It's a bit of a power play and it's a bit of a test. What do I mean by power play? It's just like Franco was talking about before. In this case, a girl is swept off her feet. She's isolated with the guy. She's all into him, but he's largely been in control. And a lot of girls have a hard time fully submitting, giving up control, especially if it's a guy they've just met or known as acquaintances or casually dated. Like, I don't know, talk to some more girls out there, but you'll find out there's a lot of bullshit men out there, so I get it. This test is a way to establish, one, is he thirsty? And nothing will say that you're in for a world of hurt than a thirsty man who's getting a little bit. Girls don't like being tricked. And if the girl gives last minute resistance and it's a guy who's got options, it's not going to faze him. If I'm on a date Monday with Wendy and Wendy decides to have last minute resistance, well, that's fine. I'm going to date Susan on Tuesday. It's cool. Yeah, if you're not into it, I don't mind. Again, it's like pulling food away from a hungry man. If he gets mad and tries to steal the food back, well, he probably just got out of prison and hasn't eaten. If he's cool with that, he's like, I'll just eat tomorrow. Then you got a guy who's been well fed, and girls love men who have been well fed. Second part of that, it's just a power play. I just want to see if he'll put up with any nonsense from me. And how you handle it is the deciding factor in whether that she weaponizes that, or can weaponize it, or doesn't. So keep those both in mind. And don't eat paint. They talk about the two types of last minute resistance. So the first one, if a woman has it out of an inability to be sexually receptive to a man or because of difficulties in accepting any man as a sexual human being, then what we have here is called a low self-esteem last minute resistance, which is a pathological form of LMR. This one is just the set's over. Girls have a very low sense of self, no self-love. Maybe they just want to feel loved. They want the idea to know they could. They don't really have desire for whatever reasons, either for you or for anybody, and it's just a waste of your time. I would like to call these ones cock teases, but they tend not to be very flirtatious anyway. So if you're in a situation like this and they're just weaponizing it to get that cathartic sense of self-satisfaction, it's over, man. Just leave. In fact, get her out of your life as fast as you can. It's not worth it, because I guarantee you this is the kind of stuff that come back to bite you in the ass, and I'll just let you imagine what I'm talking about there. Second type, if a woman has it for a biological and evolutionary need to test her male's psychological strength and control over his instincts, in other words, to test his lack of neediness, then we have high self-esteem, last-minute resistance. That's the one we're looking at. In dealing with it, so we'll start with the quote. Let's say, for example, you're about to reach the point of no return and your woman abruptly says, we should stop. The correct procedure here is not to get upset or angry or to sulk or complain. Rather, you will want to demonstrate that you understand the phenomenon, which means that you've seen it before and you're not troubled by it. Remember, sex is a gift from you to her. If you decide that you no longer feel like cuddling, get up and go make a sandwich. Go for a walk, check your email. Remember, it's absolutely vital that the woman not feel that she's been upsetting you by this course of events. I think they used to call this a freeze out. And this is essentially it. The cuddles ain't free idea. If you guys are in a situation where you're getting hot and heavy, married for a while, you just met, doesn't really matter, and she puts on the brakes, do what the red pill man does. Assume women have agency. Assume the benefit of the doubt. She doesn't want to smash? Fine. I'm going to go do something else, because fair enough. If you don't want to smash, I don't feel like cuddling for 8 hours talking about our feelings either. So just go do what you were going to do. You're not mad about it. You're not irritated about it. Assume this set is over. If they want to re-engage, then you can reassess. But that's the point. The idea here, and it's funny because the space has always had its share of guys that aren't quite right. You know what I mean? A little bit of the tism. And sometimes you have to be explicit here, and that's kind of one of these. It's almost like a don't eat paint warning, and this is one of the reasons I cannot stand the chapter. If she's not into it, she's not into it. Let it go. Just be fine with that. Go do your thing. Don't cuddle like it's a covert contract. In this case, if you don't know, a covert contract is where you're doing something expecting reciprocity, and you don't let her know the conditions of the contract. So if she doesn't want to smash, but she wants to cuddle, and you're cuddling there thinking, I just wait. Eventually, if I cuddle long enough, then I'll try again and it'll be fine. And she doesn't do it, you build up a cycle of resentment. So yeah, it's no. Go find something better to do with your time. And what you're doing here is establishing the concept of value additions. In this case, her being with you either has to provide a value for your life, or there's no you. And you're just sticking to your guns. Again, the reason you have to be very explicit with strategies like this to guys is because a lot of guys understand the concept, but they don't actually map it to their actual activities. And this is a great example of that in an otherwise, paint eating chapter. Preempting last-minute resistance is the other option. So one way to preempt the naturally occurring LMR in a healthy, high self-esteem woman is to encourage pair bonding throughout the courtship process. Assure her with such words that I feel you and I have a special connection, or even though we are here amongst our friends and loved ones, my mind is on you all the time. These words are effective with the following caveats. Such statements should never be made in an approval-seeking way and should only be done in the context of building comfort with the woman who is obviously already attracted to you. And it should go without saying that if you do not feel pair bonded with her, do not manipulate her emotions by telling her you do. Again, pair bonding is like a sociopath. In other words, it's not actually a scientific or medical term. It's something people made up. People talk about sociopaths when what they mean is psychopaths, but they don't have a degree or a diagnosis. Same thing here with pair bonding. Pair bonding just means that she's getting dopamine from you. That's it. So when I say that, don't treat it as a scientific concept. It's no different than telling you the moon is made out of cheese. Pair bonding is the manosphere's way of just telling you when a girl is into you. Use genuine desire as a step in there. It's an equally nonsense term, but at least this one, you don't have an idea in your head that, oh, I'm a doctor because I know what pair bonding is. Just don't. I do like how they add the part here, like, you shouldn't have to make it up. If you're not into her, don't pretend you're into her. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I got a video on my channel, a red pilled coffee, where I talk about this chick on TikTok, future faking, love bombing and future faking. And girls are very aware of this stuff because they've seen it their whole life. It's actually a blue-pilled seduction strategy. Go to a girl, you promise the moon with cheap signals of investment, and then you ghost when you get what you want, or sometimes even beforehand. So just don't do it. And I'll go through the reasons that it's useful in that one. I'm not going to bother rehashing it here. Moving on. Charles Bukowski, Jordan Peterson, Neil Strauss. I like these guys. Add some salt to cover up the bitterness of middle-aged soccer moms and put in the oven for 45 minutes. Optionally, you can take from all this stuff what you want and leave the rest. So enjoy Fuck Files. 15 lessons from a decade of women, now on audio. The Rapo Game, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Every once in a while, a woman will come along and give you all the right signals, all the way up until it's time to lift her skirt. Then, she not only balks at your advances, but becomes indignant about the entire notion of sexual intimacy. In other words, she tricks you. The best description of this phenomenon is in Eric Berney's Rapo Game. If you meet a woman like this, your absolute best bet is to project both strength and absolute disinterest. Showing any weakness, such as when apologizing or supplicating, may induce a further attack, with possible adverse legal consequences. Disinterest means exactly that. You never want to make an overture of any sort towards this type of woman, and best never to be isolated with her either. I'm just going to extend this to everything. We're in a climate now that this kind of stuff's not safe, and I'll lead with a couple stories on mine. So, for those who don't know, I used to work for the military. I was in the Navy. One of my postings was an instructor at the fleet school. So you'd train kids on their initial trades qualifications, how to be good old-fashioned sailors. Most of our classes were like 70-30 men to women, and we kind of had an ongoing rule. A lot of the younger students, or younger teachers, sorry, were in the room there, and we made up our own little rules, like never any closed-door meetings. If you have to have like a meeting with a girl, always bring a third person in there as a witness, door open, all that stuff. Worked like a charm because more often than not, there was disciplinary hearings that we'd have to deal with, which usually involved two members of the barracks sleeping together, and then he said and she said, and generally speaking, even if the girl makes everything up, not having a witness means the guy's career is absolutely fucked until we sort it out. And those consequences usually matter because missing 6 months of your job due to an investigation can be enough to forego a promotion, set you back years, or completely ruin a career, and nothing ever comes of it just because the machine does what the machine does. A couple of my students, I remember had one, she wanted to stay afterwards to study for whatever test. I'm like, yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that. Door is wide open. She sat in the back of the room. I sat in the front because you got to be supervising. And even then, senior instructors every 5-6 minutes came into the room. Everything okay in here? Not looking at me. And I'm like, yeah, never again. So I did that once and never again. For guys in most situations, it's a little bit more normal. You'll end up with what I call teases. Girl's super sexual, super flirty, loves saying all the right things, gives you a whiff, whatever. But then as soon as you escalate, she pushes back. And that lets you know right there, if you get a high level of sexual interest early and fast, but zero ability to escalate, then you're with a tease and she's wasting your time. And I'll tell you right now, that only ends one of two ways. The first way is you end up getting blue-balled and go home. And the second way is she ends up getting very irritated and starts weaponizing that female sexuality against you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the bar when some girl gets pissed off by a dude and then watch how the bouncers react. Don't be this guy. Again, there's a reason why you're told when you're first approaching somebody that you maybe want to smash, escalate early and often. It's not just about seeing if she's DTF or not. A lot of the times it's just testing. Is this one a tease, or is this one possibly interested in me? Maybe she's not interested in you, you know when to leave, stop wasting everybody's time. If she is interested in you, you know when to keep going and see where it goes from there. Maybe you got some chemistry. And then the third choice, maybe she's just playing you for validation and attention, and in this case, the escalation shows you to stop wasting your time just because she makes you feel real good without actually making you feel good. So again, I hate this chapter, I hate everything about it, I hate that it even has to be in here, and I hate don't eat paint warnings. I hope you enjoyed it. I will catch you on the next one, and cheers. bye.